Alright, this is my Aircaster setup for those of you who have been asking. It's going to start with the reservoir tank. These are pretty good. They're from Harbor Freight. They're fairly cheap, but they're also on the big side. You can also go with something like this. This is a Viair tank. This is made for like lowrider cars or onboard air systems for vehicles. So I actually got this from a truck part store here in town. And it's also nice because it has plenty of ports. So I cap off most of the ports, but leave one open for an inlet and one open for an outlet. Whilst with the Harbor Freight, I've found it easier to have one for the in and out, and then I just run it to a T. From the T, this is for inputting the air. Comes all the way around here. Just gives me a little ball valve with a quick connect for any sort of air system. So you'll hook up the air system, open up this valve, it lets air feed into the tank, but then before you release this, close this valve. That way all of your air doesn't just bleed right back out. And that's the input side of a system here. From that, we're going to the output side. Only difference is this is a T instead of an input and output. So from this T, I'm going to a regulator. I have this set at 30 psi. I will say this is above the recommended load of these air shims, but they have been holding like a champ at that psi. I have not tested one to failure yet, so I don't know what psi that is at, but it is greater than 30. So, after regulator, go to my valve. This one has doubled as a few things if I use other pneumatics like a piston. That's why I have the, I believe they call this a 5-way, even though it's just either feeds air to here or to here. You can get a cheaper version that is just here and bleeds out. This is from MFD, and I'll give you the model of this one. Is an M4L 310-08. I'm pretty happy with this system. It works really great for me. It's just a manual valve, so you have to have somewhere to get to this knob. If that's too obtrusive for a set piece, you can also go with an electronic version of the same thing. The only difference is you also need to have a battery as well as air. So we've just got a little 12-volt battery, and then we also run just a little toggle switch somewhere on the set piece that is not so big and bulky as this. But this works great most of the time, so this is what I'm showing in the example here. From there, I'll run to another T, and then from there I've got one side of the platform and the other side of the platform. And then from there, you hit one more T per side, so that you can have one of these airbags go to each caster. And now, this is what we're really looking at. This is the air shim between two plates here. I have welded most of this together purely because I don't want the bolt heads sticking out where they could potentially puncture the bag here. This is version 1. I'm working on a slightly cleaner version 2 right now. So you can see after we welded these in and ran this, we noticed that the threads of the bolt were ending up catching on this plate and making a lot of noise as these were inflating and deflating. So instead, for version 2, sorry about the bad camera there, I'm going to go with a smooth shank for most of it. And then I've just cut off the head, so that'll get welded into the next round of plates. That gives me the height I need to bury a bolt down to it, so then I have a smooth shank for that steel plate to run on. So this is what round 2 is going to look like here. So I've got my bottom plate. These outside holes are how I bolt this to my platform. these tall ones are going to go in here, and then these little short guys are going to go in this top plate, welded in, and that's what the caster bolts to. So it's these sets of holes are what will run up and down on this. With these air shims, they come just with one of these little guys on here, like a blood pressure cuff to let the air in and out. Just one of these little hose barbs to a 1/4 inch MPT fits in there pretty perfectly. It takes a little bit of effort to push it in, but it goes in and it ends up looking just like this. And then you put one of your little 1/4 inch quick connects right in there, and you're good to go. I just hate these plastic ones, so I'm not going to install that, but that's what you see on all these, just a better version of that. So now, so you can see what happens, I'm going to pull this valve out, and then you'll watch this inflate. So that presses all the way up, and that fills it. And then as you let the air down, this will deflate. So that's how my set of air casters work. The only downside to this right now is I don't have a good positive engagement to keep the airbag inside of this. So after I bolt this down, I will feed this in, so this is the side that is against the frame of the platform. And then I'll just take like an 1.5 inch screw with a washer on it, shoot it down through this little hole here. This hole was already in the bag. This is just how they hang off the peg in the store. But I'll put a screw in there so that keeps this from really moving around on me. Past that, typically with the platform, you build it so your caster sticks out by about 3/4 of an inch. Instead, you build it so your platform is more up here. So I know these casters sitting like this are 6 1/4 inches tall. So I build my platforms with a 6.5 inch lip. So when these are deflated, the platform is just barely taller than these wheels. And then when inflated, this is going to lift it up about 1 inch and gets you past the height of that frame. Therefore the wheels take all the weight. You can roll around with it, and then you deflate them. It lands back down on the frame, and then you have a platform that is not going anywhere. Past that, these are a 4-inch plate, 1/8 inch thick, and they come in a 20-foot length if I remember correctly. So we just take this to a chop saw, we chop them to the correct lengths, and then we just start drilling out for the holes. And then a little bit of welding is all you need, but this sure beats all the fabrication needed for the typical standard air caster system. And we've got a few of those, and the bladders seem to leak on them pretty consistently. So I love having this system here that is a pre-manufactured sealed system. That way I don't really have to worry about these leaking. I think that's it as far as what this system is. Feel free to comment with any questions and I'll help you out from there. Thanks.